Commander G1 pressed his palm against the cold metal railing of the command deck, watching the endless stars beyond the viewport. The Aegis drifted silently through the void, just another patrol ship guarding the borders of humanity's prison. 5,000 years, that's how long Earth had been cut off from the galaxy. 5,000 years since the great powers decided humanity was too dangerous to exist alongside civilized species. The ship hummed quietly around him, its fusion engines maintaining a steady pulse that had become as familiar as his own heartbeat. G1 had been born on this vessel, as had his father before him. 3 generations of his family had served aboard the Aegis, watching empty space and wondering if they were truly alone in the universe. "Contact on long-range sensors," called out Lieutenant Minho from his station near the back of the bridge. His fingers danced across holographic displays, filtering through cosmic background radiation and stellar interference. "Wait. This is strange, sir." Captain Hyunwoo looked up from his morning reports, concern creasing his weathered features. At 62, he was one of the oldest active ship commanders in the human fleet. He had spent 40 years patrolling the quarantine boundary, never once encountering anything more exciting than a rogue asteroid. "What kind of contact?" Hyunwoo asked, setting down his coffee cup. The liquid inside rippled from the ship's gentle vibrations. Minho frowned at his instruments. "It's not a ship signature, Captain. It's a transmission. Broad spectrum, high power. Someone's broadcasting on emergency frequencies." The bridge crew exchanged glances. Emergency frequencies had been silent for millennia. The galactic community had made it clear that Earth was to remain isolated, cut off from all external contact. Even their distress calls would go unanswered. "Source?" Hyunwoo demanded, moving closer to Minho's station. "Beyond the boundary, sir. Deep space. Maybe 12 light years out. The signal it's desperate, Captain. They're transmitting on every possible frequency, using power levels that would drain a city." Dr. Soyoung looked up from her linguistics console, where she had been cataloging ancient alien languages that humanity had preserved during their isolation. Her expertise had seemed purely academic until now. "Captain, I'm picking up linguistic patterns. This isn't random noise. Someone's trying to communicate." Hyunwoo felt his pulse quicken. In 4 decades of service, this was unprecedented. "Can you make sense of it?" Soyoung's fingers flew over her controls, running the signal through translation. Matrices that hadn't been used in generations. "The language structure is unfamiliar. It matches some of the older dialects we have in our archives. Pre-quarantine records from the Galactic Concordate. Patch it through to the main speakers," Hyunwoo ordered. "Let's hear what they're saying." The bridge filled with static, then slowly resolved into voices. Alien voices, speaking in overlapping harmonies that rose and fell like a desperate chorus. Even without understanding the words, the emotion was unmistakable. Pure terror. Soyoung worked frantically, cross-referencing phonetic patterns with her extensive database. "They're using an emergency protocol, sir. Something I've only seen. In the oldest records, they're calling for help from anyone in the... They call it the dead zone." Commander G1 felt a chill run down his spine. The dead zone, that's what the galaxy called their sector of space. A quarantined region where, as far as the rest of the universe knew, nothing lived anymore. "Help with what?" Hyunwoo asked. "Something called the Devourers," Soyoung translated, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're saying the Devourers have returned. Worlds are going silent. They're asking for anyone in the forbidden sector to respond." The captain stared at the main display, where star charts showed the quarantine boundary that had contained humanity for 5 millennia. Beyond that line lay the galaxy that had abandoned them, worlds, civilizations, and wonders that humanity could only dream about. "Sir," G1 interrupted, studying tactical readouts on his console, "I'm detecting energy signatures consistent with massive explosions. Multiple star systems beyond our boundary are showing unusual radiation patterns." "How? Many systems?" Hyunwoo asked grimly. "At least 12, sir. Whatever's happening out there, it's big." The alien transmission continued, growing more frantic by the minute. Other voices joined the chorus. Different species, different languages, all united in desperation. The galactic community that had once been so proud, so advanced, was crying. out for help from the very people they had exiled. Dr. So-young looked up from her console, tears in her eyes. "Captain, they're dying out there. These aren't military transmissions. They're final messages from entire civilizations." Hyun-woo looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These were the descendants of those who had been deemed too dangerous for galactic society, too violent, too unpredictable, too willing to do whatever was necessary to survive. The galaxy had locked them away and forgotten about them. Now that same galaxy was begging for help. "Options?" he asked quietly. Ji-won checked his tactical displays. "The Aegis has full combat capability, sir. Our weapon systems are unconventional. By galactic standards, but effective. We could breach the quarantine boundary in 6 hours. And if we do," Hyun-woo asked, "we'll be violating 5,000 years of enforced isolation." They made it clear humanity was to stay contained. "With respect, sir," Minho spoke up from his communications station. "They're the ones breaking radio silence. They called us." The captain stood silent for a long moment, listening to the desperate alien voices pleading across the void. Finally, he turned to Dr. So-young. "Send a response," he ordered. "Tell them Earth hears their call." So-young's hands trembled as she composed the message, encoding it in the same emergency protocols the aliens were using. "What should I tell them, sir?" Hyun-woo smiled grimly, thinking of all the generations who had lived and died in quarantine, wondering if humanity would ever again walk among the stars. "Tell them help is coming." The transmission went out, breaking 5,000 years of enforced silence. In the depths of space, alien ears heard what they thought impossible. Humanity still lived, and they were coming. Admiral Nayeon stood on the command deck of the Indomitable, watching through the massive viewport as dozens of human warships moved into formation. The sight still gave her chills. Humanity's hidden fleet emerging from the shadows after 5,000 years of isolation. Each vessel bore the scars of countless training exercises and mock battles, preparation for a war they never thought would come. The Indomitable itself was a testament to human ingenuity. Built in the orbital shipyards above Mars, it stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern. Unlike the sleek, elegant designs favored by galactic civilization, human ships were built like fortresses, thick armor plating, redundant systems, and weapons designed to function even after taking massive damage. "Admiral," Commander Tae-hyung called from the intelligence station, his voice cutting through the hum of activity on the bridge. "We've been monitoring alien communications for the past 72 hours. The patterns are interesting." Nayeon walked over to his station, where holographic displays showed intercepted transmissions from across the galaxy. The data streams pulsed with different colors, blue for standard communications, red for military frequencies, and a disturbing amount of black for dead signals. "What are you seeing?" she asked. Tae-hyung manipulated the display, zooming in on specific sectors. "When our response first went out, there was complete silence for about 6 hours. Then the alien networks exploded with activity. Panic, mostly. They're calling emergency sessions, mobilizing fleets, and arguing about what to do." "About the Devourers?" "No, Admiral, about us." Nayeon felt a cold knot form in her stomach. "Show me." The display shifted to show communication patterns between major alien worlds. The volume of traffic was staggering, billions of messages flying between star systems at faster-than-light speeds. "They're more afraid of humanity than they are of whatever's destroying their worlds," Tae-hyung continued. "Some factions are calling for immediate military action against Earth. Others are demanding we be contained again. Only a small group actually wants our help." Captain Somin approached from the tactical station, her combat armor still showing, burn marks from the morning's boarding exercises. At 45, she was one of the youngest ship commanders in the fleet, but her record spoke for itself. She had never lost a ship or failed a mission. "Admiral, I've been reviewing the alien military capabilities," Somin reported. "Their technology is impressive, but it's designed for a different kind of warfare." "Explain." Somin activated a holographic projector showing detailed scans of alien warships. "Look at these weapon systems. Precision plasma cannons, surgical strike capabilities, minimal collateral damage. Their shields are designed to deflect energy weapons, not kinetic impacts. Nyan studied the data. They're fighting a gentleman's war. Exactly. Rules of engagement, protected targets, minimal civilian casualties. Very civilized. Salmon's expression hardened. The Devourers won't care about their rules. The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of the ship's systems. Around them, the human fleet continued its preparations. Unlike their alien counterparts, human ships carried weapons that other species had banned centuries ago: kinetic, bombardment systems, biological warfare capabilities, and neural disruptors that could drive enemy crews insane. "Admiral," Lieutenant Jinwoo called from the communications station, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Concordat. They want to speak directly with you." Nyan nodded. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing the interior of what appeared to be a massive space station. Dozens of alien species filled the frame, some humanoid, others completely foreign. At the center stood a tall figure with pale blue skin and large, dark eyes. "I am High Chancellor Vexara of the Galactic Concordat," the alien said. Her voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to commanding entire star systems. "We require clarification regarding the transmission from the Sol system." Several human officers on the bridge stiffened at the name. The Galactic Concordat, the poor, same organization that had voted to quarantine humanity 5 millennia ago. Lieutenant Jinwoo's jaw clenched as he remembered the stories his grandmother had told him about the betrayal. "I am Admiral Nyan of the Terran Defense Force," she replied evenly. "What clarification do you need?" Vexara hesitated, consulting with other figures off-screen. "Are you truly from Sol 3, the sealed world?" "We prefer to call it Earth," Nyan said. "And yes, we never left." The alien's expression shifted from confusion to something approaching fear. "That's impossible. The quarantine zone was deemed uninhabitable. Our long-range sensors showed no signs of civilization." "Your sensors showed what we wanted them to show," Nyan replied calmly. "We've had 5,000 years to perfect our stealth technology." Behind Vexara, other aliens began speaking in rapid, panicked tones. The Admiral could see the fear in their eyes, fear of the humans they had tried to forget. "The situation is—" Vexara paused, choosing her words carefully. "The Devourers have consumed 12 worlds in the Outer Rim. Our combined fleets have engaged them 4 times. We have not achieved a single victory. And now you want our help," Nyan stated. "If humanity still exists, if you are truly capable of military action, then yes. We formally request aid against this threat." Nyan looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. These were the children and grandchildren of those who had been abandoned by the galaxy. They had grown up hearing stories of the betrayal, of how humanity had been locked away like dangerous animals. "Commander Tae-hyung," she said without breaking eye contact with the alien leader, "what's the status of our fleet?" 47 ships. "Ready for immediate deployment, Admiral. Full combat loadout. Captain Sumin, are your Marines prepared for boarding operations?" 2,000 combat-ready troops, Admiral. They've been training for this their entire lives. Nyan smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "High Chancellor, you're going to get your help. But understand this, we're not the same species you quarantined 5,000 years ago. We've evolved, adapted, and grown stronger in isolation." "What do you mean?" Vexara asked nervously. "You'll see," Nyan replied. "Prepare coordinates for the Devourer fleet. It's time they learned what happens when they threaten human space." As the transmission ended, the bridge erupted in activity. Orders flew between stations as the human fleet prepared for its first combat engagement in 5 millennia. Weapon systems powered up, armor plating sealed, and engines prepared for the jump to hyperspace. "Admiral," Jinwoo said quietly, "are you sure about this? After what they did to us?" Nyan looked out at the stars, thinking of all the worlds that had fallen to the Devourers. "We're not doing this for them, Lieutenant. We're doing it because those monsters are heading toward Earth next. This is our galaxy too." The human fleet began its jump to hyperspace, 47 ships vanishing into the void. Behind them, Earth's orbital defenses powered up for the first time in centuries. Humanity was going to war. Dr. Yunji's eyes burned from staring at the holographic displays for 18 straight hours, but she couldn't stop. Deep beneath the streets of Seoul, in archives that most people had forgotten existed, she was uncovering truths that would shake the foundation of everything humanity believed about their past. The underground facilities stretched for kilometers, carved into solid rock during the early years of the quarantine. Row after row of data storage units hummed quietly, containing the complete historical records of human contact with galactic civilization. Most scholars considered it ancient history. Interesting, but irrelevant. Tonight, Yunji was learning just how wrong they were. Computer cross-reference battle records from the Proxima conflict with current devourer behavioral patterns, she commanded, her voice hoarse from hours of work. The AI system, one of humanity's most advanced, processed thousands of files in seconds. What appeared on the display made Yunji's blood run cold. The energy signatures, attack patterns, and biological characteristics were identical. Her hands shook as she activated the emergency communication system. Captain Daehyun, this is Dr. Yunji in the Seoul archives. You need to see this immediately. Classification level black. Within minutes, heavy footsteps echoed through the archive corridors. Captain Daehyun burst through the security doors, followed closely by Commanders Yuna and Seok-jin. All three officers looked like they had been pulled from their beds, which they probably had. "Doctor, this better be important," Daehyun said, though his tone suggested he already knew it was. "The fleet is preparing for deployment. We don't have time for—" He stopped mid-sentence as the holographic display materialized around them. Ancient star charts filled the air, showing battle formations and fleet movements from 5,000 years ago. But what caught everyone's attention were the ship configurations, human vessels fighting not against alien fleets but alongside them. "What am I looking at?" Yuna asked, stepping closer to examine the tactical displays. Yunji manipulated the controls, bringing up personnel records and mission reports. "The official history taught in our schools says we were quarantined because we were too aggressive, too dangerous for civilized society. That's not the whole truth." She highlighted a section of the display showing human ships in formation with vessels from dozens of alien species. "These are combat records from the Great War, fought 5,200 years ago. Humanity wasn't just part of galactic civilization. We were their elite military force," Seok-jin frowned, studying the tactical formations. "The Galactic Defense Force? More than that. We were their shock troops, their special forces, their solution to problems. That regular military couldn't handle." Yunji pulled up combat footage that made all three officers stiffen. "Watch this." The hologram showed a human fleet engaging massive organic ships that pulsed with dark energy. The alien vessels were clearly not built by any known technology. They looked grown rather than constructed, with writhing tentacles and biomechanical systems that defied conventional understanding. The enemy designation was biomechanical entities, Yunji explained, but the field reports used a different name. They called them devourers. The room fell silent except for the hum of the archive systems. Daehyun stepped closer to the display, his face pale. "These are the same creatures attacking the galaxy now? Identical energy signatures, identical attack patterns, identical biological characteristics," Yunji confirmed. "The galaxy didn't defeat them 5,000 years ago. They drove them into hibernation." Yuna was reading through tactical reports, her expression growing darker with each file. "Our combat methods, they're calling them unconventional tactics and extreme measures." "Read between the lines," Yunji said grimly. "We used biological weapons designed to target alien DNA. We deployed psychological warfare that drove enemy crews insane. We kinetically bombarded populated worlds to deny them to the enemy." Seok-jin looked up from another set of records. "Civilian casualties? Minimal compared to total extinction," Yunji replied. "But the galactic community was horrified by our methods. We won the war, but at a cost they couldn't accept." The display shifted to show post-war political records. Meeting transcripts, voting records, and classified communications painted a clear picture of what had happened after humanity's victory. "They were afraid of us," Daehyun realized. "Not because we lost, but because we won. The Galactic Concordat held secret sessions for 2 years after the war ended, Yunji continued. The debate wasn't whether to punish humanity. It was whether to eliminate us entirely or just contain us. She pulled up the final vote records. Containment won by a narrow margin. The quarantine wasn't punishment for past actions. It was prevention of future ones. They were terrified of what we might become if left unchecked. A priority alert chimed through the archive system. Admiral Naon's voice filled the chamber. All senior staff, immediate briefing. Long-range sensors have detected the first Devourer hive ship. Estimated arrival at Centauri colony in 48 hours. The 3 officers looked at each other, then back at the historical records surrounding them. The irony was bitter. The galaxy that had imprisoned humanity out of fear was now begging for the very capabilities they had tried to suppress. There's something else, Yunji said quietly. The Devourer's hibernation wasn't natural. According to these records, we used a genetic weapon that forced them into dormancy. It was designed to last exactly 5,000 years. You're saying we knew they would return? Yuna asked. I'm saying someone did. The weapon's timer was deliberate. Someone wanted the Devourers to wake up when the galaxy had forgotten how to fight them. Daehyun studied the complex genetic data displayed around them. But humanity would still remember. We preserved everything. Because we weren't meant to be contained forever, Yunji realized. This was all planned. The quarantine, the isolation, the preservation of our military capabilities. We were being kept in reserve. Another alert sounded, this one from the Planetary Defense Network. Captain, came the voice of the duty officer, we're detecting massive energy buildups in the Vega system. Something big is coming. Daehyun looked at his commanders, then at the ancient records that revealed humanity's true purpose. Signal the fleet, all vessels to combat readiness, and patch me through to Admiral Naon. As the communication link established, he stared at the tactical displays showing human ships from millennia past, ships that had been designed for one purpose, to fight monsters that conventional forces couldn't stop. Admiral, he said when Naon's image appeared, we've discovered something critical about the Devourers. They're not a new threat. They're an old one. And the galaxy is about to remember why they were so afraid of us in the first place. The archive systems hummed around them as humanity prepared to reveal capabilities that had been hidden for 5,000 years. The Devourers were coming, but they were about to face an enemy that had evolved in isolation, growing stronger and more dangerous with each passing generation. The galaxy was about to learn that some monsters were best left sleeping, and others were best left unchained. The lights in the Seoul Underground archives flickered as Dr. Yunji pulled another data crystal from the ancient storage vault. Her coffee had gone cold hours ago, but she barely noticed. The deeper she dug into humanity's forgotten past, the more disturbing the truth became. The archives stretched beneath the city like a vast digital tomb, containing every scrap of information humanity had managed to save before the quarantine. Most historians thought these records were just academic curiosities, old stories about humanity's brief contact with galactic civilization. Tonight, Yunji was discovering they were actually classified military intelligence. Computer decode. File cluster Omega-7, she commanded, inserting the crystal into the reader. The holographic display erupted with data streams, showing battle formations that made her breath catch in her throat. Human warships, dozens of them, fighting not against alien fleets but alongside them. The ship designs were older than anything in current service, but unmistakably human in their brutal efficiency. Unlike the elegant alien vessels with their curved hulls and energy shields, human ships looked like flying fortresses, all angles, armor plating, and weapon emplacements. Her hands trembled as she cross-referenced the combat records with historical databases. The dates matched perfectly with the Great Silence, the period when humanity had supposedly been evaluated by galactic civilization before being quarantined. This can't be right, she whispered, but the data was undeniable. The archive's emergency. Communication system crackled to life as she activated the priority channel. Captain Daehyun, this is Dr. Yunja in the Seoul Archives. Security classification Black. You need to see this immediately. She could hear the exhaustion in her own voice. 18 hours of continuous research had revealed truths that would fundamentally change how humanity viewed its place in the galaxy. Heavy footsteps echoed through the underground corridors as security doors hissed open. Captain Daehyun entered at a run, his uniform hastily thrown on and his hair disheveled from sleep. Behind him came Commanders Yuna and Seokjin, both looking like they had been dragged from their beds. "Doctor, the fleet is preparing for combat deployment," Daehyun said sharply. "This better be critical intelligence." "It is," Yunji replied, activating the full holographic display system. The archive chamber, filled with three-dimensional star charts, tactical formations, and combat footage from 5,000 years ago. The three officers stopped dead in their tracks. Floating before them were images of human ships in perfect formation, with vessels from dozens of alien species. Reptilian cruisers from the Saurian Republic, crystalline destroyers from the Mineral Collective, and sleek bioships from species that had long since gone extinct. "What are we looking at?" Commander Yuna asked, stepping closer to examine the tactical displays. Yunji manipulated the controls, highlighting specific sections of the battle records. "The official history says we were quarantined because we were too aggressive for peaceful coexistence. That's only part of the truth." She zoomed in on a section showing human ships at the center of massive fleet formations. "These are command and control positions. We weren't just participants in galactic civilization. We were their military specialists." Commander Seokjin studied the fleet compositions with a tactical officer's eye. "The positioning suggests we were leading combined operations. That's not the role you give to a primitive species." "Exactly," Yunji confirmed. "According to these records, humanity served as the Galactic Defense Force's elite combat division. When conventional forces couldn't handle a threat, they called us." The display shifted to show combat footage that made all three officers stiffen. Human ships were engaging massive organic vessels that looked more grown than built. The enemy craft pulsed with dark energy and writhed through space like living creatures. The enemy designation in official reports was hostile biological entities, Yunji explained. But the field communications used a different term. They called them devourers. Captain Daehyun felt his blood turn to ice. The same creatures that are attacking the galaxy now. Identical biosignatures, identical energy patterns, identical tactical behavior, Yunji confirmed, pulling up comparative analysis data. The galaxy didn't defeat them 5,000 years ago. They just forced them into hibernation. Yuna was reading through tactical reports, her expression growing darker with each file. "Our combat methods, these alien reports are calling them extreme beyond acceptable parameters." "Look at the specifics," Yunji said, highlighting sections of the combat records. "We deployed biological weapons that targeted alien DNA structures. We used psychological warfare techniques that induced complete neural breakdown in enemy crews. We conducted kinetic bombardment of populated worlds to deny resources to the enemy." Seokjin looked up from analyzing weapons specifications. "Collateral damage estimates. Massive by galactic standards," Yunji admitted, "but minimal compared to total species extinction. The aliens were fighting a civilized war with rules of engagement and protected targets. We were fighting for survival." The holographic display shifted to show post-war political records, meeting transcripts, voting sessions, and classified communications between alien governments. The picture they painted was clear and disturbing. "After we won the war, the Galactic Concordat held secret sessions for 3 years, Yunji continued. "The debate wasn't about punishment, it was about containment versus elimination." Daehyun read through the voting records, his face growing pale. "They were afraid of us. Not because we lost, but because we were too effective." "The quarantine was never about punishment," Yunji said quietly. "It was about preventing us from becoming something they couldn't control. They were terrified of what humanity might evolve into if left unchecked." A priority alert chimed through the archive systems. Admiral Nayan's voice filled the chamber with urgency. "All senior staff, immediate tactical briefing, long range. Sensors have confirmed Devourer hive ships approaching the Centauri system. Estimated contact in 36 hours. The three officers exchanged glances, then looked back at the historical records surrounding them. The irony was bitter. The same galaxy that had imprisoned them out of fear was now desperately begging for the capabilities they had tried to suppress. "There's something else," Yunja said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The Devourer's hibernation wasn't natural. We used a genetic weapon that forced them into dormancy, but it had a built-in timer." "How long?" Yuna asked, though she already suspected the answer. 5,000 years. Someone designed the weapon to wear off at exactly this time. The implications hit them like physical blows. The quarantine, the isolation, the careful preservation of human military capabilities, it had all been planned. "We were never meant to be contained forever," Daehyun realized. "We were being kept in reserve." Another alert sounded from the Planetary Defense Network. "Captain, we're detecting massive energy signatures in multiple systems. The Devourers aren't sending scouts. They're launching a full-scale invasion." Daehyun looked at his commanders, then at the ancient battle records floating around them. Ships that had been designed for one purpose, to fight monsters that conventional forces couldn't stop. He activated his communication link to Admiral Naeon. "Admiral, we've discovered critical intelligence about the Devourers. They're not a new threat. They're the same enemy we defeated before, and the galaxy is about to remember why they quarantined us in the first place." As the communication ended, the archive systems hummed with activity, uploading the historical records to the fleet's tactical databases. Humanity was about to reveal capabilities that had been hidden for 5 millennia, capabilities that had once saved the galaxy and terrified it in equal measure. The Devourers were coming, but they were about to face an enemy that had spent 5,000 years in isolation, growing stronger and more dangerous with each passing generation. The galaxy was about to learn that some protectors were more terrifying than the monsters they fought. The Kepler system was dying, and Captain Wu Jin could smell the smoke even through the recycled air of the Retribution. Through the bridges, main viewport, he watched as massive bioships writhed in the void like wounded animals. Their organic hulls, once pulsing with dark energy, now leaked strange fluids that crystallized instantly in the cold of space. Direct hit on the primary. "Hive cluster," Commander Ariam reported from the weapons station. Her fingers danced across the targeting controls, marking the next group of Devourer vessels. "Kinetic penetrators are punching clean through their bio-armor." Wu Jin nodded grimly. The human kinetic weapons were brutal in their simplicity. Massive. Tungsten rods accelerated to near-light speed. No fancy energy beams or exotic particles, just pure kinetic force that could punch through a mountain. The Devourer's organic armor, designed to absorb and redirect energy weapons, was useless against old-fashioned momentum. "Sir, the alien fleet is maintaining position at 30,000 kilometers, Lieutenant Dong-hyun called from the communications station. "They're not engaging." Through the tactical display, Wu Jin could see the alien vessels hanging back like spectators at a sporting event. Their sleek ships gleamed with energy shields and precision weapon arrays, but they weren't firing. Instead, they were watching the human fleet tear through Devourer forces with a combination of fascination and horror. "They're not used to this," Ariam observed, launching another volley of kinetic rounds. "Look at their weapon patterns. They're trying to disable Devourer ships, not destroy them." Wu Jin studied the alien tactical formations. Even now, facing an enemy that had consumed 12 worlds, they were still fighting with restraint. Their plasma beams targeted propulsion systems and weapon clusters, attempting to neutralize threats rather than annihilate them. "Target the breeding." "Clusters," he ordered. "Full spread, maximum penetration. I want nothing left alive in those ships." The Retribution's main guns swiveled toward a massive Devourer bioship that pulsed with egg-like structures along its hull. The kinetic rounds struck with the force of meteor impacts, tearing through organic armor and venting atmosphere into space. The ship's death scream echoed across radio frequencies, a sound that made even veteran human crew members shudder. "Captain," Dong-hyun interrupted. "We're receiving a priority transmission from the Concordat fleet. High Chancellor Vexara wants to speak with you directly." "Put her through," Wu Jin replied, not taking his eyes off the tactical display. The main screen flickered to show the interior of an alien command ship. Vexara's pale blue features were tight with concern, and behind her, Wujin could see other alien officers watching the battle with obvious distress. "Captain Wujin, we must request that you cease the use of biological warfare agents," she said without preamble. "Your methods are causing unnecessary suffering to the enemy combatants." Wujin's laugh was sharp and bitter. "Unnecessary suffering? Chancellor, these things just finished eating the population of Kepler 442b, all 2 billion civilians. That doesn't justify it, justifies everything." Wujin cut her off. "You wanted humanity back in this fight. Well, this is how we fight. We don't take prisoners, we don't study samples, we don't negotiate. We kill the enemy completely and make sure they can't come back." On the tactical display, human ships were deploying weapon systems that made the alien observers recoil in horror. Viral agents designed specifically to devour organic matter spread through the enemy. Fleet like a plague, bioships that had survived kinetic impacts began dissolving from the inside out, their crews dying in agony as their own ships became toxic to them. "This is barbaric," Vexara protested. "There are rules of warfare, conventions that govern your—" "Conventions got 12 worlds eaten," Wujin interrupted. "Our barbarism is going to save the rest." On the planet below, the real horror was unfolding. Colonel Sungmin led the human ground forces through the ruins of New Geneva, where devourer creatures had been building their breeding complexes. The city was unrecognizable. Organic growths covered every surface, and the air itself seemed alive with microscopic organisms. "Flamethrower teams advance," Sungmin commanded through his helmet comm. "I want every breeding chamber burned to ash." His soldiers moved with mechanical precision, their armor looking crude compared to the elegant exoskeletons worn by alien troops. But where alien equipment was designed for comfort and efficiency, human combat gear was built for one purpose: killing things that couldn't be reasoned with. Sergeant Cheung triggered her flamethrower, sending a stream of burning fuel into a cluster of egg-like structures. The organic matter ignited with a sound like screaming, and the entire complex began to collapse as the flames spread through its nervous system. "Sir," she reported, "we're getting interference from the alien observers. They want us to capture samples for study." Sungmin's response was immediate. "Negative, everything burns. If they want to study devourers, they can find some somewhere else." The human ground forces moved through the city like a cleansing fire, destroying every trace of devourer presence. Where alien troops would have established containment zones and research facilities, humans simply burned everything and moved on. Back on the Retribution, Wujin watched the tactical display as the last devourer bioship died in a ball of flame. The enemy fleet was completely destroyed, not disabled, not captured, but annihilated down to the last organism. "Admiral Nayan to all ships," came the voice over the command frequency. "Well done, Kepler system. Long-range sensors are detecting 3 more hive worlds in the Vega sector. Prepare for hyperspace jump in 20 minutes. As the human fleet began powering up their jump drives, another transmission came from the alien coalition. This time, it wasn't just Vexara. Representatives from a dozen species filled the screen, all looking shaken by what they had witnessed. "Captain," Vexara began carefully, "your methods are extreme beyond acceptable parameters. The level of destruction you've inflicted saved this system," Wujin finished. "Your acceptable parameters got 12 worlds consumed. Our extreme methods just prevented a 13th. An alien with insectoid features stepped forward. But the collateral damage, the environmental impact, will heal in a few decades," Wujin replied. "The alternative was total consumption. Every living thing on that planet would have been processed into more devourers." "There must be a middle ground," Vexara insisted. "Some way to fight this enemy without becoming monsters ourselves." Wujin looked at the alien leaders, species that had achieved wonders of technology and civilization, but had forgotten the fundamental truth about survival. "Chancellor, sometimes the only way to fight monsters is to become something they fear more." The transmission ended, and the human fleet began its jump to hyperspace. As the Retribution disappeared into the void, it left behind a system that was scarred but alive. The Devourers were gone, completely and forever. On the bridge, Wujin looked at his crew. men and women who had spent their lives preparing for a war the galaxy had hoped would never come. They were humanity's answer to the darkness between the stars, forged in isolation and tempered by necessity. "Next target, sir?" Ariam asked, already programming the weapon systems for the next engagement. "The Vega sector," Wujin replied. 3 more hive worlds. 3 more chances to remind the galaxy why they were afraid of us. As the ship hurtled through hyperspace toward the next battle, the alien coalition was left to contemplate an uncomfortable truth. Their saviors were every bit as terrifying as their enemies. The silence after the final battle was deafening. Fleet A. Admiral Nyon stood on the command deck of the Indomitable, watching through the massive viewport as the last Devourer hive ship convulsed in its death throes. The massive bio-vessel, once the size of a small moon, was breaking apart in slow motion, its organic components dissolving into cosmic dust. 6 months of continuous warfare had led to this moment. 6 months of jumping from system to system, hunting down every last Devourer nest, breeding ground, and scout ship. The human fleet had become a force of nature, relentless, efficient, and absolutely merciless in their campaign of extermination. "Status report on all vessels," Nyon commanded, not taking her eyes off the dying enemy ship. Commander G1 moved between stations, collecting data from across the fleet. The bridge of the Indomitable showed the scars of battle, burn marks. On the walls, patched hull breaches and equipment that had been repaired so many times it barely resembled its original design. 17% total fleet losses, Admiral, G1 reported grimly. 43% of surviving crew have combat injuries. The Defiant lost her entire portside weapons array, and the Vengeance is running on backup life support. Nyon nodded, accepting the numbers without emotion. Human losses had been significant, but they had achieved something the galaxy thought impossible: complete victory against an enemy that had consumed entire civilizations. "What about our allies?" she asked, though she already suspected the answer. "The alien coalition suffered 80% casualties," G1 replied quietly. "Most of their surviving ships are barely functional. The Saurian Republic lost their entire 4th fleet. The Crystal Collective has only 3 ships left operational." The cost of victory was written in the wreckage floating around them. Alien ships, beautiful, elegant vessels designed for exploration and peaceful contact, had been torn apart by enemies they weren't equipped to fight. Only the human fleet remained at full combat effectiveness, their ships built for war and crewed by warriors who had trained their entire lives for this moment. A priority transmission came through the communications array. High Chancellor Vexara's image materialized on the main screen, but she looked nothing like the confident leader who had first contacted humanity 6 months ago. The alien's pale blue skin had taken on a grayish tint, and her large eyes held a weariness that spoke of too many sleepless nights, watching human forces do what was necessary. "Admiral Nyon," she began, her voice carefully controlled, "the Galactic Concordat extends its deepest gratitude to humanity. The debt we owe cannot be measured or repaid." Captain Hyunwoo, now wearing the stripes of a full admiral earned through months of brutal combat, stepped forward. His armor still bore scorch marks from boarding actions against Devourer bioships, and his left arm was in a medical brace from his last encounter with enemy ground forces. "But?" he asked, sensing the hesitation in the alien leader's voice. Vexara's expression tightened. "The civilian populations across the galaxy are concerned. Your methods, while effective, have reminded many species why the quarantine was implemented originally." Admiral Somin, standing near the tactical station, let out a harsh laugh. Her combat suit was patched with bio-resistant materials, and one side of her helmet was melted from exposure to Devourer acid. "They're afraid of us again." "Not afraid," Vexara corrected quickly. "Concerned about reintegration. Some worlds are requesting enhanced defensive measures. Others are asking for distance from human operations." Nyon felt the familiar weight of isolation settling on her shoulders. For 6 months, humanity had fought alongside alien forces, sharing battlefield communications and coordinating strikes. But she had seen the looks on alien faces when human forces deployed their more extreme weapons. Horror, disgust, and above all, fear. So what are you proposing? Neon asked directly. The Concordat is prepared to offer humanity full membership in galactic civilization, territory, resources, technological exchange, cultural integration, but there would need to be agreements about weapons restrictions and operational parameters. The bridge fell silent. Every human officer present understood what was being offered and what was being demanded in return. They could rejoin the ED galaxy, but only if they agreed to be neutered, their most effective capabilities locked away until the next crisis. Let me understand this correctly, Admiral Somin said, her voice dangerously quiet. You want us to give up the weapons and tactics that just saved your civilizations. We want assurance that humanity will operate within acceptable moral and legal frameworks, Vexara replied. Your acceptable frameworks got 12 worlds eaten, Hyunwoo pointed out bluntly. Nayeon looked around the bridge at her officers, men and women who had spent their lives preparing for a war the galaxy hoped would never come. They had answered the call for help, paid the price in blood, and achieved total victory. Now they were being asked to apologize for their effectiveness. Counter-proposal, she said finally. Humanity maintains complete sovereignty over our territory, our methods and our military capabilities. When the galaxy faces threats it cannot handle, you contact us. Otherwise we maintain our own borders and govern ourselves. That's not integration, Vexara protested. The goal is to bring humanity back into the galactic community, as equals, Nayeon emphasized, not as controlled weapons to be locked. Away between crises. The alien leader's image flickered as she consulted with others off-screen. Nayeon could see the debate happening in the background, different species arguing about humanity's place in the galaxy. Some wanted them contained, again. Others recognized that future threats would require human capabilities. After several minutes, Vexara returned to the screen. The Concordat accepts your terms. Humanity will be recognized as a sovereign power with full territorial rights. Trade. Agreements and diplomatic relations will be established, but military cooperation will be as needed. Translation, Somin muttered. We'll call you when we need someone to do our dirty work. Nayeon studied the alien leader's face, reading the mixture of gratitude and wariness there. Chancellor, you'll need us again. Monsters like the Devourers don't stay dead forever. The galaxy has a way of producing new nightmares. Perhaps, Vexara agreed reluctantly, but hopefully not for a very long time. When they do return, Nayeon continued, remember that the price of our help is accepting what we are. We're not heroes from your stories. We're the weapon you point at things too dangerous for civilized people to handle. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in contemplative silence. Around them, the human fleet began forming up for the journey home. Scarred ships, exhausted crews, but victorious beyond question. Orders, Admiral? Commander Jiwon asked. Set course for Earth, Nayeon replied. We're going home. As the Indomitable and her escort fleet turned toward human space, they carried with them the knowledge that they had saved the galaxy, and the bitter understanding that the galaxy would never truly accept them for what they were. They were protectors who could never belong to those they protected, guardians forever standing watch at the edge of civilization. The last Devourer hive ship finally collapsed into cosmic dust, but somewhere in the vast darkness of space, new threats were already stirring. When they emerged, the galaxy would once again remember where to find the humans who answered the forbidden call. In the end, humanity had paid the ultimate price for victory. They had won the right to remain forever, necessary and forever alone. The end.